Hello and welcome to this latest video on data warehouse automation. We're still working on the ecosystem for all things code generation to deliver easy and scalable data solutions, and this latest video is about trying to automate everything using command line utilities. So recently I've created this addition to the class library for data warehouse automation, and it's called Run Data Warehouse Automation. Basically, when we develop our patterns using, for example, virtual data warehouse, and we have the input information that we define in the structure of the schema for data warehouse automation, it's all well and good to look and play around with the patterns and templates, simulate your data warehouse or develop your data logistics that way. In some cases, you want to hook the output of these tools, the artifacts, the metadata files, the patterns, into something that you can run into more of a DevOps pipeline or toolchain. This is what Run Data Warehouse Automation does. What I've done is I've compiled the executable, put it in a directory on my laptop, and I've created an input where there's a couple of JSON files that I've taken from the virtual data warehouse sample set. There's also a pattern directory, and I've taken one of the patterns from the virtual data warehouse sample set. So basically, I want to apply a couple of input JSONs, which are all hub type entities, against a specific way of applying the pattern to this metadata, creating a view. We can do this using Run Data Warehouse Automation. So just to show what happens when I run it, it will basically say, look, there's a couple of input and pattern parameters missing. These are mandatory, and all the other things are optional, and we can see what we want to do with that. So what I can do now is to run this automation process with an input JSON file and a pattern, and just look at the results. So I can enable this verbose messaging to just see what's happening on the screen. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run data warehouse automation with the input file of a specific JSON file, have customer, and then apply it to the pattern we select, and don't do anything else, just generate the output and show it on the console as verbose output. And we can see the result as we would see in virtual data warehouse as well, which is a view that can be created. But we want to do more. What we then want to do is to make sure that this output that can be generated is also written to file. So in that case, we can add an extension that enables the output. So this will by default create a file in a text format with the .txt extension, and it will then write it into the directory where we're currently running the program from. So this will create a file customer text. This file would have the exact same structure as we saw in the verbose output. So we can do more. We can also say we want to give it a specific extension, for example, a SQL extension, and it will create a file as SQL. We can also give it another file name with the -f or -f, and then we create a new file with that information. So we'll remove those again. The next thing we'll do is to run the same process, but now against a directory of files. So now we're going to run this same logic, this pattern, against all the files in the directory. So I'm going to clear the screen. Instead of selecting a specific file, I'm going to look at all the files in the directory, apply to the same template, show the information on the console, and enable the output in SQL format in the directory as well. So this time it will generate a specific SQL file for each of the JSON files that we have in the input. There's also other things we can do. We can also specify a specific output directory. So if we create a new directory here that says output, I'm going to remove these again, and I'm going to specify -output, which is the name of the directory relative to the point that we execute the program from. And now the information will be saved in the output directory. So there's a couple of elements we can tweak and configure to make this program run in a certain way, depending on how we want to hook it into our DevOps pipeline. The last thing I want to show is to explain how the process, how the system knows what the name of the file needs to be that is written to disk. You may wonder, why is the name of the file hub customer? How does the program know that? And to answer this, we need to look at the structure of the input JSON metadata itself. For example, if I open up this hub customer JSON file, there's an element in the structure, mapping name, which is by default how the program assumes the target file needs to be called. There's a lot of use cases where a typical source to target program translates into a single module or executable. And on this convention, the assumption is made that we need to call the file that it generates like that. If we leave this out altogether, now save it, and I'll go and run everything again, the output will know what to call this file. And of course, we've seen that we can overrule this and then give it a different name. We can also change the name of the file by manipulating this mapping name element. For example, saying, we want to have the target file to be named hub customer for membership, which is all fine. These are examples on how we can drive the way the program works. And of course, the next step is to automate this into a toolchain, but that's the topic of the next video. I hope this was interesting. Contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.